with Rush, so you remix the album Vapor Trails. I'm curious, how do you have constraints when you're remixing an album versus just mixing an album? Do you have to listen to the original to have a
No,
set point to move from?
no, I don't like to do that. I don't want to recreate I would just end up trying to recreate the other mix for the most part. No, in that case, so it was an interesting story. When I first moved back to Toronto, was when they were doing that work for that album. That was just after Neil's family had passed away, and he'd been on his sort of 2-year self-reflection motorcycle trip. He was getting back into writing and playing, and they sort of said, well, they called me up and said, will you come down and listen, maybe do some work with us? And I came down to the studio, and we sat in for the day, and they said, would you do this with us? And I said, well, how long do you think you're going to want to work? They're like, yeah, Neil's just kind of getting back in this. We're probably going to be doing this for a year. And I thought, well, I can't really commit a whole year to one project. So I said, look, let's talk maybe later in the year and see where you're at. And maybe if you want me to dive in. That didn't happen in the end, which is fine. It didn't bother me at all. But they mixed it at the time where it was right kind of in the height of the volume wars. And so it was very heavily limited, very compressed, very little dynamic in it. And a lot of the fan base weren't happy with it. The band weren't really happy with it, the mix of it. And so this went on, amongst nowadays, you have it back in the old days, you'd never have that kind of review of something, but social media is a thing. And their fan base always wanted it to be remixed. So they got a hold of me and said, look, ironically, 10 years after we didn't do this album together, would you like to remix it? So I said, sure. And I did. And there was very little restriction. They weren't over at my studio. They just said, here, take the material and have a go. So I did. And they were very happy with it at the end. I mean, we took, one song and did it, and they had revisions, but just the general tone of it, they were like, yeah, this is great. We love this. So there was sort of all kinds of conspiracy theories online about, well, the recordings were bad and they had to re-record solos and re-record everything. It's not the case at all. I got the material and it all sounded great. It's well recorded. It was just mixed in a way that was consummate to the time. And the history has shown that people prefer things with a little bit more breathing space, a little bit more dynamic. So I just did a mix like that. And the fan base, I think, is generally happy with it. Rush fans are also extremely passionate. So you're going to get feedback. I got probably, I'd say, 80% Rush love and 20% Rush hate. So
that's pretty good when it comes to Rush and their diehard.
I thought it was a fairly good ratio. Yeah. I saw some comments of people hating it, and I saw lots of comments of people loving it. So I'll take it.